Oliver, a guy from a wealthy and successful family, fell in love with a simple nurse. It all happened when he went to the clinic for some paperwork and encountered the girl with captivating eyes. She smiled at him, and he was smitten. For several days, he waited for her after work, walked her to the dormitory where she lived, and she had no idea that Oliver was very well off. He dressed modestly, didn't show off, was kind, humorous, and attentive. It took them just 2 weeks to realize that they couldn't do without each other. Oliver's mother, Martha, learned about his girlfriend 6 months after they met and was horrified. "Oliver, dear, what have you gotten yourself into? A girl from the lower class can't possibly be a good and faithful wife. Do you even know the conditions they live in? Who is raising them? Come to your senses. Besides, I hope this isn't serious, especially since you'll be getting a call soon, and you'll be going to Europe. Dear, find yourself a suitable bride there." "Mom, don't you understand me? I love Lexi and want to be only with her." "You don't understand anything. Want to marry a common floozy who's ready to hop into bed with anyone with money. Go ahead," shouted the mother. "Just don't whine later, having your horns sawed off." "Oliver, my dear, don't be upset," she spoke again in a conciliatory tone. "You're not a boy anymore, and you understand that this Lexi of yours just fell for the money. Mom, she doesn't know who I am, has no idea I'm rich, and she's only interested in me. If I were poor, she'd still love me the same. I don't believe it, you know. Anyway, let's drop this conversation. I don't want to continue it. You'll leave soon, and that's it." 2 months passed. Oliver continued seeing Lexi, ignoring his mother's warnings, believing it was his life, and he had the right to manage it as he pleased. So when he received the call, he curtly told his mother that he wasn't going anywhere and would start preparing for the wedding tomorrow. "All right, son, do as you please. I tried to warn you, but you're not 5 anymore, and you have the right to make your own choices. And since we're on the subject, go to your Lexi and let's meet her. Your father and I should see our future daughter-in-law, especially since he's returning from his business trip today. What time should we set the table for dinner?" "Let's aim for 7, Oliver replied, approaching and hugging his mother. "I always knew you were the kindest and smartest woman in the world. I love you very much." Hurrying to Lexi's dormitory, where his girlfriend lived, Oliver bought a ring and her favorite daisies along the way. He sighed with relief. Today she would find out that she was marrying not just an ordinary programmer, but a wealthy and highly promising individual. Standing in front of Lexi's door, Oliver paused for a moment, then knocked and entered. The two inside didn't hear his knock. They were engrossed in each other. Oliver watched as Lexi's hands moved slowly down the back of her lover, covered only by a sheet up to his waist. He saw how she arched and moaned in her lover's embrace. The bouquet and the ring box slipped from Oliver's weakened grip. Lexi straightened up and looked at him. She blushed but didn't avert her widened, horrified eyes and remained silent. Oliver turned and left the room, leaving the door open. He returned home looking so pale that Martha was alarmed. "Oliver, you're back so early, and I haven't prepared anything yet. Where's Lexi? What happened?" "Well, don't stay silent." "You were right, Mom. Lexi is just a common floozy. When I came in, she was in bed with someone else. Also, I'm leaving tomorrow. Please pack my things." Neither father nor mother could convince their son to join them for dinner. He secluded himself, only responding that he was fine. Only once, in response to his mother's persistent voice, he snapped and shouted, "Go away. Leave me alone. Don't you understand how much it hurts? I hate all of you." He then hurled a massive vase at the door, shattering it into thousands of shards, much like his soul. Throughout the night, the parents listened to the heavy footsteps of their son pacing the room, wounded like a trapped animal. But in the morning, he emerged quite composed, asked if his things were ready, bid farewell to his mother, and asked his father to take him to the airport. When Victor returned home, he told his wife, "This wretchedness has broken our boy's heart, and I don't know if he can mend it." Meanwhile, the one labeled as wretchedness sat by the window, sobbing uncontrollably, unable to restrain the torrents of bitter tears. Oliver was mistaken when he said that no one could understand his pain. Lexi understood, but her pain was 100,000 times more intense. Just a few days ago, she was a bride and considered herself the happiest girl in the world, because she had Oliver, sweet, dear, caring, and very affectionate. They talked about their wedding, planned children, and reluctantly parted with heavy hearts, counting the hours until their next meeting. It all came to an end the moment a tall, beautiful, and elegantly dressed lady appeared at the door of her room. She introduced herself as Martha Vasilievna and said she was Oliver's mother. "So you're the one who drove my son crazy," she said, surveying the bewildered girl and the poor state of her room, taken aback by the unexpected visit. Well, quite something to behold, I must say. Lexi, did Oliver ever tell you that he's wealthy? No? Odd, I thought you knew. Let's get straight to the point then. Where can I sit? Lexi offered the guest a chair and sat down herself. She still hadn't uttered a word, not understanding what was happening and whether there was some mistake in all of this. But the more Oliver's mother spoke, the more Lexi realized she was falling into a dark, bottomless abyss. Listen, girl, Martha continued, addressing Lexi. If you truly love my son as you claim, let him go. Don't ruin his life or career. I've learned everything about you. You're just a nurse in some godforsaken hospital. Your mother died of grief, drowning her sorrows when your father was in prison for a drunken brawl. He didn't find peace then and is now buried under some unknown number in a graveyard no one cares about. After your mother's death, you ended up in an orphanage, where you were raised from the age of 8 until you reached full legal age. And now, my son, an inheritor of intellect, with a school and university journey adorned with red diplomas, a developer of scientific projects. He is being invited abroad to engage in collaborative scientific endeavors. Lexi, do you comprehend the magnitude of this? And he's ready to forsake all of it for you, because with your track record, you won't be allowed into Europe. Everyone will turn away from him. Do you understand? Everything he has been working towards for years will simply be lost. I didn't come here to create a scandal, and I won't offer you money to avoid offending your feelings. But let's imagine what awaits you if you do decide to get married. You won't live in our house because we belong to different generations, with different habits, and I don't want us to interfere with each other and be a constant source of annoyance. This means you'll have to live in an apartment. The majority of the money will go towards repaying the loans that Oliver took out to develop his projects. Another portion will cover the expenses of the apartment and food. You'll have nothing left, but then there will be children, and any semblance of peace will be completely forgotten. I apologize for painting such a vivid picture, but I've lived long enough and seen a lot. I know how, due to one mistake, not only marriages crumble but entire families. That's how it goes, dear. Oliver's flight is the day after tomorrow. You have only one day to make the right decision. Will you ruin your beloved's life, or will you give him the chance to live as he deserves? Martha left, and Lexi stared at the closed door for a long time. Then she got up and walked to the end of the corridor. There she knocked on the door and entered. Seated at the table was a tall, handsome guy. "Hello, Lexi, hey, will you join us?" he asked. "No, Serpy, I need your help," Lexi replied. Sergey put down his fork and turned to the girl. "Lexi, I've known you for many years. We grew up together in the orphanage, and I've never seen you like this. Tell me, what happened?" But Lexi couldn't utter a word for a long time, sobbing on his shoulder. Only when she calmed down a bit, she told him everything Martha had just told her. "What are you talking about?" Sergey exclaimed. "Don't you dare listen to her. I'll go talk to your Oliver right now." "No," Lexi replied. "If you that, I'll forever stop considering you my brother, understood? Help me, and we'll stage a scene that will make Oliver leave on his own. They'll recover and quickly forget about me." "And you?" "And me? What about me? Tell me, if the fate of your loved one depended on you, what would you choose?" "I don't know." Later, Lexi returned to her room, made the bed, and waited by the window. As soon as Sergey arrived, Oliver appeared on the path. Sergey only took off his shirt, and Lexi also hurried into bed. Just as they managed to cover themselves with a blanket, Oliver walked in. "You know, Lexi, I've never felt like such a scoundrel," Sergey later said. "Go, Sergey, leave me alone," Lexi replied. She locked herself in, and for several days, no one saw the girl. Only Sergey knew that she was inconsolably crying, but he understood her grief and didn't interfere with her coping with it. The only thing Sergey didn't know was that Lexi was expecting a child. No one else knew about it. For years past. One day, Lexi came to the store with her little son, but couldn't manage to climb the steps with the stroller. Suddenly, a handsome man in his 50s stepped up to her and effortlessly helped overcome the obstacle. Lexi found him familiar, but she couldn't recall where she had seen him. She thanked him for his help, and a few days later, they met again, this time in the park. They greeted each other like old acquaintances and started talking. "Lexi, why doesn't your husband help you?" Victor asked. "I don't have a husband, Victor. I'm sorry. Unrequited love, huh? Happy but short-lived. We simply couldn't be together, and I rejected Oliver. My son Oliver also had an unhappy love. He still can't forget her." Suddenly, Victor abruptly stopped. "Are you Lexi Safonova?" "Yes," Lexi stammered. "And you're?" "Yes, Lexi, I'm Oliver's father. Come on, let's sit down, and you'll tell me everything." As if a dam burst in Lexi's soul, she couldn't contain the flood of words and tears. "So this guy is my grandson. And did Martha ruin everything? Oh, Lexi. What have you done, foolish girl?" He suddenly pulled the girl towards him, comforting her, stroking her head, while little Joe in the stroller stared at them with curious eyes. From that day on, Lexi's life changed. Victor rented a nice apartment for her, bought everything the grandson needed, and visited them several times a week, laden with groceries and toys. Lexi appreciated his visits, thanked him for everything, and little Joe reached out to his grandfather with a happy laugh. Meanwhile, Martha began to suspect her husband of having a young lover. When her friend informed her that she had seen him with a girl in a stroller, Martha was horrified and immediately summoned her son. "Oliver, my dear, come back, I need you so much," she cried, explaining nothing over the phone, and Oliver, fearful for him, rushed back to his hometown on the very next flight. His mother greeted him with hugs and shared her suspicions. "Mom, you scared me so much. I thought he was dead. He started another family. And that's even worse, you know. I know the address. I've been keeping tabs. Come with me, I beg you." I want to look them in the eyes right there. And there they stood on the threshold of an unfamiliar apartment, a door that Victor indeed opened. "Dad, can you explain what this means?" "Easily." Martha wanted to scream but froze with her mouth open because Lexi appeared from the kitchen with a child in her arms. "Lexi?" Oliver exclaimed. "Dad, what on earth is this?" "Calm down, son. This is your wife and your son Joe. So my grandson, without whom I can't live anymore. And this is your mother, who separated you, and I want her to tell us everything herself. Or I'll do it for her." Martha shook her head, and then Victor began. "Mom," Oliver turned to Martha, "you wanted everyone to look each other in the eyes. Look, here we all are." But Martha, bowing her head, stepped over the threshold. Victor lifted his grandson in his arms. "Come on, Joe, let's go make some tea, and Mom and Dad can talk." When, after 10 minutes, he peeked out to invite them to the table, he saw that they hadn't uttered a word. They just stood there, embracing, unwilling to let go of each other.